Hello, and welcome to the lesson on constructing a formula. What are we going to learn in this lesson? We'll understand what is it to construct a formula by constructing some simple everyday formulae. Then we'll go on to understand how do we construct formulae involving one or more variables from the worded statements. And finally, we'll understand how do we construct formulae which involve fixed and variable components. Let's get going then. Let's understand what is it to construct a formula from simple everyday formulae. What are simple everyday formulae? These are the formulae which are constructed from everyday general facts. For example, how many pence do you think are there in Y pounds? And that we need to represent using the letter X. So number of pence is X. How many are there in Y pounds? Now, one of the thumb rules that I use to construct any formula to understand is to represent each of these variables by some number so that we can have a pattern which can be recreated. For example, let's replace y by some simple numbers. Like if y was 1 pound, how many pence do you think it would have? Well, you know, 1 pound has 100 pence, which is 1 times 100. What about y was 4 pounds? You know, the number of pence would be 4 times 100. 9 pounds, the number of pence would be 9 times 100. So now let's replace the pounds by the letter which is given to us, which is Y pounds. So what if there were Y pounds? Now, if I look at the pattern carefully, whatever is the pounds, you need to multiply it by 100 to arrive at pence. So Y pounds will have Y times 100 pence. And we need to represent this by the letter X as given in the question. So your formula would finally be X equals to 100Y, which is the same as Y times 100, right? X equals to 100Y. Look, it's as simple as that. Let's look at one more formula. How many minutes M will be there in H hours? Well, let's use the same thumb rule again. Instead of H, we'll replace that with simple values like 1 hour. If there was 1 hour, how many minutes will be there? 60 minutes, right? 1 times 60. How about 3 hours? The number of minutes would be 3 times 60. In 7 hours, the number of minutes would be 7 times 60. And in H hours, if you look at the pattern now, whatever is the hours, you multiply it by 60 to arrive at minutes. So H hours will be H times 60. And as given in the question, we need to represent that by the letter M, right? Number of minutes M. So your formula would be M equals to 60H, where H is the hours. Okay, M is the number of minutes in H hours. So M equals to 60 times H. Here are some more for practice. I would like you to pause the video at this moment and try constructing a formula for each of the statements which are given here. Well, let's look at the first one. Number of hours in D days. Each day has 24 hours. So D days would have 24 D hours. And that needs to be represented by the letter H as given there. So H equals to 24D is your answer. Number of socks in P pairs. Now each pair has 2 socks, you know that, right? So P pairs will have 2 times P, which is 2P socks. So S equals to 2P is your formula. How many units in 1 dozen? We know that it's 12, right? So in D dozen, it will be 12 times D. So number of eggs E will be equal to 12D in D dozen. How many wheels in a tricycle? It's a tricycle, so it has 3 wheels, right? So each tricycle has 3 wheels. If I have T of them, T tricycles, it will be 3 times T. And that is the wheels, which is W. So W equals to 3T. Do you have knowledge about the deck of cards? How many cards do you think are there in one deck? It's 52 cards without the jokers, right? So in one deck, there are 52 cards. D deck of cards will have 52 times D. Okay, and we need to represent the total number of cards by the letter C. So it is C equals to 52D. How many days in W weeks? each week has 7 days. So W weeks will have 7W, right? So D, which is the number of days, will be given by 7 times the number of weeks, which is W. So D equals to 7W is your formula. You kind of see the pattern now, right? Number of players P in F football teams without any extras. So each team has 11 players. So F teams would have 11F, right? And the number of players is given by the letter P. So P equals to 11F. Finally, how many centimeters in M meters? Do you know each meter has how many centimeters? Each meter has 100 centimeters. So M meters would have 100 M, and that's given by the letter C. So C equals to 100 M. Okay, that should be 100 M. Okay, so I'll just correct that. So that has to be 100 M. Okay, because each meter has 100 centimeters. So that's your correct answer. Sorry for that. Okay, let's move on then. Now that we understood what is to construct a formula, okay, what is it to construct a formula by using some simple everyday formulae. Now let us try and understand how do we construct a formula from the statements which are given. Okay, let's first do formulae which involve only one variable. The time in Thailand, which is T, is 7 hours ahead of that in London, which is G. Write a formula to represent the time in Thailand with respect to that in London. Okay, I always use the thumb rule so that it avoids any confusion. So if the London time was 4 a.m., what do you think is the time in Thailand, knowing that it is 7 hours ahead of London? Well, it's 4 a.m. plus 7 hours, whatever that is. If the London time was 7 a.m., what would the time in Thailand be? It's 7 a.m. plus 7 hours. How about if London time was 11 a.m.? Thailand time would be 11 a.m. plus 7 hours. And the good thing is we don't have to find out what the actual time is. As long as I know I need to add 7 to get the Thailand time. Then the London time is given as G, correct? That's what is given. Look at the statement, the question. It says London time is given by G. What is Thailand time would be? As you can see the pattern, the Thailand time is whatever is the London time plus 7. So if it is G, then it will be G plus 7. That's your Thailand time, right? And the Thailand time is represented by the letter T. So your final answer is T equals to G plus 7, right? Let's take one more example of formulae involving one variable. Here you go. A restaurant takes an average of 4 minutes to process every order. Write a formula to represent the time taken in minutes, which is M, to process X orders. Well, once again, let's replace the number of orders, which is X, by some simple values. What if there were 12 orders? So each order takes 4 minutes on an average. So if there were 12 orders, it would take 12 times 4, correct? Which is 48 minutes. If there were 25 orders, it would take them 25 times 4, which is 100 minutes. 40 orders would take 40 times 4. So what if there were X orders? As you can see the pattern, whatever is the number of orders, you multiply it by 4 to arrive at the time taken in minutes, right? So it will be X times 4 minutes. And the total number of minutes has to be represented by the letter M as given in the question. So your final answer would be M equals to 4x. Right. Now, let's make it a little difficult. So let's construct formulae which involved two variables. A company charges £40 per adult and £25 per child on a sightseeing tour. Write an expression for the total charges to be given by the letter C for X adults and Y children. Right? So let's take some random values for adults and children and then try to construct the total charges. So let's say if there were one adult and two children, what would the total charges be? So as you can see, for every adult, it's 40 pounds. For every child, it is 25 pounds. Correct? So the total charges in this case would be 1 times 40 plus 2 times 25. Correct? Okay. What about two adults and three children? Okay, I can see the pattern now. It's 2 times 40 plus 3 times 25. Right? How about three adults, two children? This time, the 40 pounds will be multiplied by 3 because there are three adults, and the 25 pounds by 2 because there are two children. So 3 times 40 plus 2 times 25. And now, as per the question, we have X adults and Y children. As you can see the pattern, you multiply the number of adults by 40 and the number of children by 25 to arrive at the total charges. So in this case, X will be multiplied by 40 and Y will be multiplied by 25. So X times 40 plus Y times 25 will be the total charges. And the total charges need to be represented by the letter C. So your final answer would be C equals to 40x plus 25y. Okay, let's take one more example. A small coach can hold 20 passengers and a large coach can hold 50 passengers. Write an expression for the number of passengers, which is P, in X small coaches and Y large coaches. Well, once again, let's replace X and Y by some simple numbers and try to find out what would be the total number of passengers. So if there were three small coaches and two large coaches, you know that each small coach can hold 20 passengers. So three of them will hold 3 times 20. Each large coach can hold 50 passengers. So two of them, two large coaches will hold 2 times 50. So the total number of passengers will be 3 times 20 plus 2 times 50, right? How about if there were five small coaches and three large coaches? So you multiply each small coach by 20. So five of them will be 5 times 20. And for each large coach, you multiply by 50. So 3 times 50. So your total number of passengers would be 5 times 20 plus 3 times 50. How about two small coaches and four large coaches? It will be 2 times 20 because each small coach has 20 passengers plus 4 times 50 because each large coach has 50 passengers. Now, what if there were X small coaches and Y large coaches? Clearly, you can see the pattern. You multiply 20 to the number of small coaches, you multiply 50 to the number of large coaches and add them. So your final answer will be X times 20 plus Y times 50. And you need to represent the total number of passengers by the letter P. So your final answer would be P equals to 20x, which is X times 20, plus 50y, which is Y times 50. And there you go. We have constructed the formula. Now, whatever examples that we have seen so far, including the everyday formulae or the one variable or two variables, they seem to be quite easy formulae to construct, right? But still, I insisted that you should replace the variables by some simple values as a thumb rule to understand the pattern. Now, you'll understand the importance of doing that in the next formulae that we are going to construct, because the next examples are really tricky. These are the examples which have some quantities which are fixed and some are variables. And this is where you will understand the importance of assigning values to the variables. Okay, so that it becomes very easy to understand. Let's take an example. Right, so these are the formulae which has a fixed component and a variable component. Okay, the cost of a TV is 250 pounds plus 4 monthly installments of M pounds. Write an expression for the total cost of TV, which is T, in terms of M. So while buying a TV, you make a down payment of 250 pounds and then you pay the remaining amount in terms of installment. So the installment amount is not fixed. Okay, it depends on the overall price of the TV. But it's fixed that you pay 4 installments. And it's also fixed that you pay a down payment or make a down payment of £250. So you need to find the total cost of TV T in terms of M. Okay, so first let's understand which is the fixed component here and which is the variable component. As you can see, the fixed component is the £250 because that's the down payment you're making. So irrespective of the total cost of the TV, you're still making a fixed payment of £250. What is the variable component? The variable component is the amount of each installment. Okay, because that keeps on varying depending on the total cost of the TV. Right? Now, with this background, let's try and construct the formula. So if the monthly installment was £50, what do you think will be the total cost of the TV? So you'll make a down payment of £250, and then there will be 4 installments of £50. So your total cost will be 250, which is your down payment, plus 4 times 50, because each installment is £50 and there are 4 of them you're making. So 250 plus 4 times 50 will be your total cost. Okay. What if the monthly installment was £70? What will be the total cost of the TV? Once again, the down payment, because it's a fixed cost, you'll always pay £250. But in this case, there'll be 4 installments, each of £70. So the total cost will be 250 plus 4 installments of 70. So 4 times 70. How about if the monthly installment was £100? The total cost of the TV would then be £250 plus 4 times 100. Okay, now that you can see the pattern, what if the monthly installment was M pounds? That's what is given in the question, right? So it will be £250, which is the fixed down payment, plus 4 times the installment of M pounds, right? For each month you pay M pounds, 4 months will be 4 times M. So 250 plus 4 times M is your total cost of the TV, which is given by the letter T. So the formula will be T equals to 250 plus 4M. 4 times M is 4M, right? So seemingly difficult question can also be made easy if I were to just replace all these variables by simple numbers. We have 2 more examples of this kind. Okay, let's do it to the next one. A taxi company charges a fixed charge of £5 plus an additional £2 for each mile of the journey. Write an expression for the total charges, which is C, for a journey which is Y miles long. Yes, okay, these letters can really confuse you. But as I gave you the thumb rule, okay, you have to replace the letters by the numbers. So in this case, what's the fixed charge? Okay, as it's given, it's £5 because irrespective of the distance that you're traveling, you need to pay £5. Okay, that's a fixed charge. And then depending on the length of the journey, you pay £2 for each mile. So £2 is your variable component, as you can see. Okay, in this case, £2 is your variable component. £5 is fixed, £2 is variable. So let's randomly take for different length of the journey. Okay, what will be the total charges? So instead of y miles, I'll replace y with some simple distance like 3 miles. What if the journey was 3 miles? You would still have to pay £5 because that's a fixed charge. But for each mile, you'll have to pay £2. So it will be 2 times 3, correct? As in 3 miles times £2 for each mile. And you pay a fixed of £5. Okay, so far so good. What if the journey length was 5 miles? You would still pay £5, but then you'll pay 5 times £2 because it's just 5 miles. So for each mile you pay £2. So the variable charges would be 5 times 2. What if the journey was 12 miles? Okay, if the journey was 12 miles, it will be £5 plus 12 times 2. Correct? Now you kind of see a pattern. So now we go on to the letter. Okay, what if the journey was y miles? As you can see, it will be £5, which is fixed charge, plus for y miles, each mile has £2. So y miles will have y times 2. And that's your total charges. And total charges need to be represented by the letter C. So your formula will be C equals to 5 plus 2y, right? Finally, the last example of this kind is here. The recommended time for cooking chicken is 20 minutes per kg plus 40 minutes. Write an expression for the recommended time T required to cook X kgs of chicken. As always, okay, let's identify which is the fixed component and which is the variable component. So if you look at the statement carefully, it says 20 minutes per kg, which means 20 minutes is the variable component. Am I right? Because it depends on the weight of the chicken. Plus 40 minutes. So 40 minutes is the fixed component, as you can see, right? 40 is the fixed component. But 20 minutes is the variable component because it all depends on the amount of chicken, the weight of the chicken, 20 minutes per kg. So that's the variable component. So let's now replace X, which is the variable, by some simple weights, okay, and try to find out the total cooking time required. What if the chicken was 4 kg, right? Cooking time would be a fixed time of 40 minutes plus 20 minutes for each kg. So in this case, there are 4 kgs, so it will be 20 times 4, correct? So 40 minutes is the fixed time and the variable time is 4 times 40 because for each kg of the chicken, you need to spend 20 minutes to cook. Okay. What if the chicken was 9 kgs? You would still end up spending 40 minutes as fixed time. And for each kg of the chicken, you spend 20 minutes. So it will be 40 plus 9 times 20 because it's 9 kgs. For 11 kg chicken, you'll spend 40 minutes fixed and 11 times 20, the variable time, correct? So now if the chicken was X kgs, how much time do you think you'll spend? 40 minutes fixed and X times 20 as the variable time. Because for every minute, you'll account for 20 minutes. Every kg, you'll account for 20 minutes of cooking time. So for X kgs, you'll account for X times 20. So a fixed of 40 and a variable of X times 20. That's your total cooking time, which has to be given by the letter T. So your formula would finally be T equals to 40 plus 20x, right? 20 times X is 20x. So T equals to 40, which is the fixed time, plus 20x. Because it's a X kg chicken, for each kg you spend 20 minutes. So for X kgs, it will be 20x. So the total time is T equals to 40 plus 20x. Well, that's the end of the lesson. I hope you understood how to construct formula. We started by understanding this concept of constructing a formula using some simple everyday formulae. Then we went on to understand how do we construct simple one variable or two variable formulae from worded statements. And finally, we went on to the complicated ones, which involved fixed and variable components. I hope you understood how to construct all kind of formulae. Thank you.